They mentioned here there's not going to be any, or they don't cover any asphalt repair, and you're going to be using rubber tire machines, but I suspect there's going to be some damage to the driveway as they drive up and down with these loads. And I don't think that's really going to impact the park to have those damages. I don't think we're going to need to come back later and repair any of that, or I don't envision the need to make any more expenses to repair that asphalt once they are done.
Now, that would not be my recommendation, considering that parking lot doesn't get a lot of high vehicular use. I did want to make sure that I mentioned that this is a unfunded expense, and that staff's recommendation is to fund this out of budgetary reserve.
Based on your assessment of the quantity that was already removed relative to what is still remains there, what I understand is that for the city to have the capacity to complete the work, that solely in tipping fees would likely be equivalent to the total cost of this quote.
That's correct.
So effectively, we're doing this at cost. Am I effective? Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you. So there's no chance they're going to come back and say, we goofed, we had to go to the dump 20 extra times and ask us for more money on this. Is this contract pretty solid?
We will certainly, this agreement, we will make sure we send it to our city attorney to review and advise us before we sign it.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? One opposed. Motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda item F5, approve redesignation of the city planner by resolution. Mr. Parker.
Yes, we discussed this at the work session. I think we can handle this quickly.
Very
The current code mentions that the designated city planner currently is Pond and not our city planner that we have on staff. And so this just redesignates in the code that the city planner will be Mr. Gaines, who is our planning and development manager, versus an outside consultant. So the recommendation is that the council approves designating by resolution attached the planning and development manager as the city planner.
I need a motion. Need a second? I need a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is F6, approve RFQ for planning and engineering consulting services. Mr. Parker.
Yes, along those same lines, now that we do have a planning and development manager, we have the ability to reduce the scope of services that we are currently being provided by outside consultants, number one. And then secondly, it's always good to periodically recompete your intact contracts. And so for those two reasons, we're asking the council to approve staff advertising a request for proposals for planning and engineering services.
Mr. Parker, I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Need a second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the agenda item F7, first read proposed multifamily housing ordinance. Mr. Parker.
Yes, thank you, sir. When I first got here, I've had conversations with a few council people regarding the conditions of our multifamily dwellings. And we were requested to look at ways that we could address that problem. I asked our quality of life officer, Mr. Frank Winfrey, to look at this particular issue. He and I discussed some models that we were both familiar with in other communities that effectively address this issue. And I think we've come up with a very good solution, and I would like to ask Mr. Frank Winfrey to come to the microphone now and to walk you through this process.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Within the city of Clarkston, the multifamily housing ranges from 1 bedroom all the way up to 4 bedrooms. There are 7 locations that have more than 100 individual apartment units or dwelling units, and there are a total of 12 locations that have less than 100 individual apartments or dwelling units. All of these locations has 2 things in common. First, the buildings were constructed somewhere around the 1960s, give or take a few years. And judging a book by its cover, from the outside, one can conclude that the property owners have reinvested very little financial resources back into maintenance and upkeep of the properties. So these factors create a real challenge for us when we consider that 50+ years have gone by since the buildings were first built and very little progress has been made to maintain the properties. Now, we're not alone. Every city and county certainly are faced with the same challenges, and some have chosen not to address the issue while others have chosen to meet the challenges and have implemented provisions that are very similar to what we are proposing to you tonight. We have a total inventory of 1,627 individual apartment units or dwelling units. Staff proposes adding an Article 5 to Chapter 11, the Occupational License and Taxes, creating the multifamily housing section of Clarkston's Code of Ordinances. Within this provision, the city will require the property owners of multifamily housing property with 4 or more units and that has an on-site, off-site management office to retain the services of a certified building or housing inspector. Now, the inspectors will use an inspection report that is attached to the proposed ordinance as Exhibit A. They will also be required to sign a sworn statement that's located on the code compliance certificate that will be submitted to the city along with each inspection performed. The provision requires them to perform said inspection of 20% of the total number of dwelling units within the multifamily housing property each year. So over the span of 5 years, a total of 100% of the units would have been inspected by a certified housing or building inspector. Now, we propose this process to be tied into the annual renewal process for the occupational tax, which is known as the business license. Let me paint you a numerical picture. Our current inventory is 1,627 individual apartment units or dwelling units, and under this provision, with each calendar year, a total of 325 individual apartment units or dwelling units will be inspected by a certified building inspector or housing inspector that's retained by the property owner. So the city will receive 325 inspection reports every year that the quality of life officer will process and follow up with failed inspection reports. For every failed inspection report, we'll issue a warning notice of violation, and a time frame will be given for compliance, and it will follow a re-inspection by the quality of life officer. There are some benefits to this provision. First and foremost, our citizens who reside in multifamily housing locations will benefit greatly by this provision and making sure that their living conditions is more than just adequate, but is improving their quality of life. The second benefit is to the property owners themselves, because this is going to encourage and help the property owners to reinvest in their investment properties, and so that they can maintain and increase their values of their own properties as well. Lastly, all the citizens will ultimately benefit from the positive effects that our multifamily housing complexes, the improving of those will also help the values everywhere else. Now I'm going to turn this back over to Mr. Barker as he's going to discuss some other aspects regarding this provision.
Thank you, Mr. Winfrey. The last thing I wanted to mention is that we're not proposing to do this in a vacuum. I've reached out to representatives of the Atlanta Apartment Association, Ms. Penelope Rounds, someone that I met with some 6 months ago when we began to start talking about this. And she is aware that we are doing this. She and I are scheduled to meet over the next week or week and a half, whenever we can schedule it. She'd like to talk to me about some minor tweaks to this ordinance, but nothing significant. And so we're also proposing, she and I have talked about that organization providing assistance in getting all the stakeholders to the table, wherein we will be able to explain in great detail how this ordinance will work and what they will be required to do as a result, assuming that it passes. And so it's sort of be a similar process that we went through with our stakeholder discussions regarding the alcohol permit. So I just wanted to let you all know there will be some stakeholder involvement, and there will be an education information process that goes along with this.
Okay. That was the first reading. Thank you so much. Okay.
Can we discuss any of this as we're going forward? I'd like to clarify a couple of items on here and understanding perhaps with quality of life and the city manager. Are we going to be apprised of these meetings we're going to be involved in, like we were with the stakeholders for the alcohol issues? One question.
The answer is yes. Okay.
And on the exit requirements, unobstructed means of egress leading to safe and open space is a question for quality of life, Mr. Winfrey. Is that a code that the bedrooms must have a window that is a certain size for people to exit the sleeping space in the event of a fire?
Could you repeat the question?
In the sleeping space, is there a size and a requirement for the windows to be operational in that sleeping area for egress in the event of a fire?
Yes, sir. That's covered in the building codes.
And these building inspectors that these guys, these property owners are going to hire, and if I understand that correctly, they're supposed to be hiring their own?
Yes.
That is correct.
How do we intercede in the event that they try to hire a fly-by-night consultant to fill out their forms or do their inspections?
I would certainly call your attention to Exhibit A, the code compliance certificate. You will find that at the bottom there is the certified and sworn this day of, and this will be the name of the inspector, the registration number of the inspector, as well as his certification held, so that we can confirm those qualifications.
Just a typo, I think sworn on this day of, it should be just 2000 blank blank, not 200 blank.
We'll fix that.
Any more questions, discussion on it? Yeah, go ahead.
Further question. Mr. Winfrey, if you could just clarify if I'm reading section 11-97 1B correctly, that the initial inspection will be 100% initial inspection, and then subsequently 20% per year following for the next 5?
Yeah, I can answer that. That is correct. So the thought is, upon your initial application and inspection, you need to confirm and verify through this process that all of your units meet requirements. Then after that, 20% of your units each year, where every 5 years, all 100% of your units will be inspected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I have an item under new business that I would like somebody to give me a motion to add an agenda item, and it's a resolution to create the position of the city prosecutor.
Make motion to create a position for city.
Add to the agenda. I need a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Okay, I need, Mr. Quinn to take up the item, what number do I give that? Item F13?
Yeah, I would say F15.
F15 in right order. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize for not getting this to staff in time to be on the agenda originally. What's occurred is that the General Assembly in Atlanta has passed a new law that for the first time recognizes at the state level